Hello and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Catherine Haleko and I'm here with Terri Morrow. Say hi, Terri.
Hello.
Usually on the Parenting Roundabout podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Terri and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change.
Indeed.
So this week we'll be kicking off our new TV marathon, Sports Night, and we'll also be talking about the other most well-known Aaron Sorkin project, The West Wing, with the episode called Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics, and is the West Wing Weekly podcast episode that goes along with that. But first, we wanted to talk about yet another podcast, which is a Hamilton fan podcast called The Room Where It's Happening. It's distributed by Earwolf, and it features two guys. At least one of them has been a writer on the Jon Stewart, the Daily Show, I believe.
I think it's the Trevor Noah iteration.
Oh, okay. So he's still a writer.
Yeah.
So and they are ostensibly going song by song and devoting an episode to each song on the cast album or on the soundtrack, whatever. And they have guests, and so far I've listened to 3 episodes, Terry's listened to 4, and we are finding it to be uneven, right? There have been some episodes that we've really enjoyed, and there have been other ones that were less successful to us.
Yeah.
So, Terry, you want to give us your quickie review?
Well, first I would say, I wonder when they recorded these. I'm getting the sense that they are all done and that they're now just releasing them.
Yeah.
Because in the one with Chernow, he was saying that he just went to the first performance where they did it for students.
Yeah, which is a long time ago.
There's been at least 1 or 2 since then.
Yeah.
And I think Jasmine Cephas Jones said that she was 26. Wikipedia says she's 27. I'm not sure when her birthday is. But so these have been around for a while, which makes me feel like, why didn't you give them to me then? I wanted them then. I want all of them now. Let's have a Netflix binge.
Right.
So it's a little out of time that way. When you hear that, you think, well, wait a minute. That happened kind of a long time ago. So I'm curious about that. Probably it's been said or written somewhere, but this just sort of appeared. I didn't hear anything about it coming. It just, and Manuel Miranda, I think, put on his Twitter feed, hey, you guys will like this. And here it is.
Yeah, and it's not, I know that there's lots of other Hamilton podcasts out there. This is just one that we happen to come across and start listening to. So I would be interested to hear from people if there are different ones that we should be checking out.
Yeah, but this one seems to have the seal of approval. They're using the song and they've got people from the cast on it. They've got, they have good, when they have guests, when they have related guests, they're good related guests. And so it seems to be like a step up from just you and me sitting here talking about Hamilton, which we could easily do, people.
Yes, we could.
Y'all are lucky you're not getting a Hamilton week out podcast. So there seems to be it's at a more advanced level than just any old Hamilton podcast.
Right.
But I did feel, as you said, there's an unevenness. I don't remember, I've listened to like 4 of them more or less in a row. I don't remember the first one. Was there a guest for the first one, or were they just setting up the concept?
No, the first one was Adam Savage from Mythbusters.
Okay,
and
that's right. Yes. And I enjoyed him.
I enjoyed him too. He was on just as a super fan type person.
Right.
And I thought he was good. He had interesting things to say. They had interesting questions to ask him. That one was successful.
And I guess in terms of unevenness, out of these 4, there was one I had a problem with. So maybe that's not fair to say it was uneven. But it was the second one with Kristen Chenoweth, who I like quite a bit. But it gave me the sense of being at a party where people are talking about something that you love and they are getting things wrong.
Yes.
And it's like, do I say, I know more about this than you do. Let me tell you. or do you just sort of move away and talk to somebody else? I was at a party like that this weekend, which is why it struck me that, and of course, we podcast, we make mistakes all the time. I absolutely 1,000% know how it happens. But the host said that Jefferson was played by Chris Jackson, and Kristen Chenoweth did not correct him. And they went on for quite a bit, going back to the fact that Jefferson played by Chris Jackson, which
no way.
Who knows Hamilton was screaming.
Right.
That's Daveed Diggs. Chris Jackson plays Washington iconically. How can you make that
and they're
mistake?
Both iconic. Like, come on.
It's not like you're getting a couple of ensemble members mixed up, or who was it who did the, this part of it. That's big. That's hard to move on from.
It's hard to forgive.
So they both then came off like people who are talking about Hamilton for 50 minutes but don't really know what they're talking about.
Right.
So, and I can get that pretty much, I can get that by talking to people I know.
Right, exactly.
And I can get way better Hamilton fan service from the thousands of people who are doing brilliant stuff online based on it. Mm-hmm. So that was difficult. I had a hard time getting through that entire episode. I really wanted to just skip to the next. And the next one was Ron Chernow, who wrote the book that got all this started. And he was just delightful. I enjoyed listening. I want a podcast by him.
Yeah.
Let's just
right.
move on.
Let's just have him all the time.
Yeah, he was wonderful. And, he has gotten a winning lottery ticket by Lin-Manuel Miranda picking up his book and reading it and making this huge artistic success from it. And there's different ways that an author could take that, know, and he seems to just have taken it in the most delighted and cool and enjoyable way possible. And I love that. And I'm so glad to hear him talking about it that way, that he seems to be just tickled that this is what has come of the work that he did. And he is completely into it and enjoying it. So that was great. I did listen to the 4th episode, which I don't think you've listened to yet.
No, not yet.
With Jasmine Cephas Jones, who plays Peggy Schuyler and Mariah Reynolds. And when it started, she sounds like she's 17 and not 27. I mean, she sounds like such a kid. And I was thinking, well, this could go either way.
Yeah.
But as they got into talking to her, and it was another one where it was just the single host. The other one was not there. Mm-hmm. As they got into it, she was great, and lots of inside anecdotes and stuff. And I really enjoyed getting that insight into her and hearing her experiences with it. And so that was fun. Next week's is John Hodgman is the guest, so it's going to be another Hamilton superfan, famous fan thing.
Okay, but John Hodgman, that should be good.
I guess.
I like him. He's fun.
I like him, but he has a certain shtick that I do not know whether I will enjoy in this context or not. We will see.
Right, that's fair.
I will certainly listen to it and enjoy it, and look forward to more cast members talking about it. Yeah. And more people associated with the production. They're the ones I really want to hear from.
Right. Those seem to be more successful. And also if you're thinking about listening to this, know that the concept of we're going to listen to one song at a time and really dig deep onto that one song is not really happening. It's
not.
It's a very loose thread that they are hanging their episodes on. I mean, especially. So I mean, if you're there for that, then you probably need a different podcast. It just depends on the interviewee, I think.
Yes,
how it's going.
That's where the Chenoweth one ran off the rails, because there was too much of fanning over her rather than the play. Which, I mean, if I would had a chance to talk to her, I'd want to talk to her about her career also. But that's not what this is. Yeah,
and to me, it honestly felt like she didn't feel as big of a fan as
she really did.
I mean, it felt to me like she was there to talk about herself.
It's kind of like they could get Kristen Chenoweth, so
let's do it. And they're like, "Have you seen Hamilton?" Yeah, I've seen it. That Chris Jones, he's great. Whatever his name is, I like him.
Oh man, that was hard to get around, and it's sure, I'm happy to listen to famous people talk about this thing that I love, but at this point, there are so many wonderful things on the internet by fans about this show who are not famous but are hugely more articulate and into it, that maybe I don't really want to hear people who are not associated with the show but are famous talk about it.
Right.
We'll see how it goes. It might get better. Right. But there's quite a lot of fan stuff
that's
that
out there.
I would rather listen to than Kristen Chenoweth talk about the great job Chris Jackson did as Jefferson.
Right.
So
so we're going to have to...
we make mistakes all the time. Absolutely understand how it happened, but...
You got to catch that stuff. I mean, come on.
Do they not have an editor who could have said, hey guys, could you go back and do that part again?
Right, or say it later.
At the end, splice something onto the end. I mean, I know I read on Twitter that people were asking about it. So, yeah, that's hard.
So we're not giving it a, 10 out of 10 would watch, but we're giving it a reserve. We'll continue to check in.
Absolutely.
Especially when they have people like a cast member or, when they finally get Lin-Manuel or President Obama.
Speaking of other things I could do without.
Is that,
and
yes.
Each episode with, hey, guest, plead with us to get a different guest to come on here, even if it is the president. I do not care for that.
No,
you know
I don't
what?
either.
Get him or don't get him.
Right, but we don't need all this.
And I gotta think that if these are all recorded, pretty good chance they already got him. So, what is this?
Yeah.
I could do without that. But anyway, so I'm woefully behind on podcasts. I just was noticing today how many I have piled up. But I will keep listening to this one. But I might fast forward through some.
Yeah, or skip some,
And of course, I also can't get over my podcast jealousy when new podcasts drop, even if they're by famous people and involve famous people and are immediately hugely successful and have advertisers in. We're striving away here.
Come on, guys. Call us.
Yes. Anyway, so moving on.
Yes. So moving on, last week we finished our marathon of Parks and Rec. So, yes, R.I.P. So now we are moving on to a new sitcom series. We decided to watch Sports Night, which debuted in, I believe, 1998.
Yes, it started in 1998, and it had a full season before The West Wing started. The second season of Sports Night and the first season of West Wing were the same season.
Okay.
Which we can discuss when we get there, what that meant to Sports Night, because it was possibly not getting
the attention it needed. Yeah.
Or perhaps both seasons suffered from them being concurrent. My dog has something she wants to say about the truck. Let's take a moment for her to editorialize about the truck. The motorcycle should be on our street. She has strong feelings, and she's not going to shut up.
She really does have strong.
Anyway, so there is a lot of time. I mean, I feel like West Wing, Sports Night Season 1 and West Wing Season 2 are superior to the overlap season. So it's possible that the fact that two things were being done at once was by the same creative team a thing. But this first season of Sports Night existed before West Wing existed. So a lot of the things we're seeing in here that we will see on a serious note on West Wing.
Yeah, it's really striking the similarities.
The walk and talks and the banter and the quick talk and the, possibly concerning relationships in between men and women in the workplace, all got their TV start anyway. I'm sure you can trace them back through his work in movies and plays as well. But it was so fun to watch these again. Now I'm, again, as with Parks and Rec, watching these for a second time. You are watching it for the first time. Right. I have revisited them before because I have two sets of DVDs. The original one that came out and then the enhanced one with commentary. And yet I'm still watching it on my phone, on the ABC app with 500 commercials.
With commercials.
But how are you feeling about it, watching it the first time now? And in the context of also watching West Wing for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, the similarities are very strong. I mean, all of
it has a strong voice.
It does.
Not mistake. This is not generic stuff. It's definitely
the walk and talks and the bantering. The very quick repartee between the characters, and it's a workplace, and people are passionate about their work, and all of that is very familiar from having been seeing it on West Wing. So that's interesting to see. It's interesting to kind of do the compare and contrast between something that's a straight up comedy and something that's more of a drama with comedic elements.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly plenty of comedic banter on the West Wing too. So
right.
That carried over, definitely. It's not all serious. And Sports Night also has some serious conversations.
Right, so it absolutely does.
Dramedy, I guess, as they would say.
Right.
One thing I wanted to mention, this first season has laughter. I thought it was canned. According to Alan Sepinwall, who did a rewatch of this a while back on his blog, it was at first a studio audience, a very confused studio audience, because Sorkin doesn't set up jokes in a way that when it's your turn to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually they went to canned laughter, and they finally got rid of it. I think Sorkin and Tommy Shalami were fighting it the entire first season, and boy, is it awful.
It's bad. Yeah.
I'm never a fan of it, but it just does not work.
It doesn't work at all. It's very jarring. And
so know, folks, as you watch this, that the creative team hated it as much as you do, and that eventually goes away, and try to ignore it.
Right. So just to set up briefly, the four that we watched, we're going to do four at a time like we did with Parks and Rec, and the ones that we watched were the pilot, which is just called The Pilot, The Apology, The Hungry and the Hunted, and Intellectual Property. Those are the four. And they have some interesting twists and turns. The apology in particular, when you get to the actual apology, it's quite surprising.
Yeah, but before we get there, I want to talk about the pilot, because I think that, I was interesting to see that Alan Sepinwall said the same things in his look at it, is that that there's going to be a resolution at the end of this. That by the end of this, Casey is going to be drawn back into sports, and that everything's going to be okay. The way they got there, I thought was just delightfully surprising. I did not see that coming at all. They set it up so well early on that they were going to have this thing about this runner, and the network was very dismissive of it, and they were defending it, and that was the vehicle that brought him back. I thought was really nicely done, and not something that I saw coming at all.
No, me either.
And so when somebody sets something up like that early in an episode, and then it pays off in a way you never expected, that's good writing. I really love that. That will win me over every time, even if not everything about the episode is perfect. I also always feel with this one that Josh Malina, I love him, and I like his character of Jeremy in this, but oh boy, was that opening speech of his. You just, honey, you got the job. Just turn it down a few notches. And again, as I said, I was looking over Alan Sepinwall's blog and noticing that he said the same thing, that he's playing to the cheap seats in this. And that it does take him a few episodes to kind of find the groove of Jeremy. Because, I mean, Jeremy is also a guy who's trying to sell himself pretty hard. So it's not necessarily inappropriate, but it's very sitcom-y. That speech he gives, that's one where, boy, the audience knew where to laugh. It's just, we just throwing you this softball here. So if you are a fan of his and wondering if this is the way he's going to be the whole time, no. The character of Jeremy finds a groove and is just wonderful. Little hard here at the beginning.
Right. But it is fun to watch him after having listen to him regularly now on the West Wing Weekly podcast. It's fun to see him, these many years ago, playing this big old nerd that he's playing. Absolutely.
And he does eventually get to the West Wing. We'll have to watch some of those episodes with him, even if we stop at some point. Just because he hits the ground running much faster on that one, and his character is sort of a variation on Jeremy, and yet much more on his game right from the beginning. So it'll be interesting for you to see the contrast of that as we go along.
Right.
But so yeah, that was the pilot, and then the apology. So what did you think of the way the apology ended up? And then I'll tell you what I've always thought about it.
So, well, just in case people haven't seen this, there's this whole thing where Dan, the Josh Charles character, who's one of the anchors on the show, he's given an interview, and his word has been somewhat twisted to make it sound like he was saying that he's pro-drugs or something. Yeah. It's a little, I don't know, it's kind of thin, if you ask me.
It is.
And, for them being a news, they're sports, that's journalism, and they're, trashing the magazine for being journalists. I don't know. It's that part didn't work for me.
We bring in the black hats from the network for the second episode in a row to be messing with our beloved creative people.
Right. So they tell him that he has to do an on-air apology, that to make it clear that no, he's not saying that we should all be taking drugs all the time or something. Yes. And he rightfully says, well, who am I apologizing to? What did I do? Basically.
Yeah, and they also, the network guys also make a point that he said in the interview that he hasn't, I guess, had a drink or he's been sober for a specific number of years since a specific time. Right. And they're wondering, that sounds like he was an addict and he stopped, and that's why he remembers the specific time.
And he never told them that he was an addict. And, and which is totally separate from asking him to make an apology for something that he's not clear who he hurt that he needs to apologize to. So he's not happy about this, but he knows that he has to do it. But he completely turns it on its head by addressing the apology to his younger brother who died in a drunk driving related car accident. And he felt responsible for having set a bad example for his younger brother, I guess. So it was really shocking, but also very moving, I thought.
Yeah, you know what? I don't remember the first time I saw it how I feel about it, but I think it was the same. It didn't work for me. What I really wanted to happen, and what I expected the first time I saw it, and what I still wish would happen every time, is after he's done and the camera is off him and Casey wheels up to do what it turns out to be the very funny thing of diffusing the moment by mentioning the Starlight Vocal Band.
Right.
But I expect Casey to say, "You don't have a brother." That's the way I always think that he's made it up. That he said, "Oh my gosh, want me to apologize? I'm going to make this tear-jerking story," but it's not true. Which I suppose he couldn't really do because they would find out. But some journalist would look it up. But that's I want to puncture that sentimentality. I mean, and Sorkin does the sentimentality, so it is a very Sorkin-y thing. But to me, it just seems like,
no. Didn't work for you.
It didn't work for me. But it seems to work for everybody. A lot of people mention this as one of their favorite episodes, and that was such a great twist, and that worked so wonderfully. And okay, I'll give them that. But I still really want Casey to say, "You never told me you had a brother." Right. So, anyway. But I love the subplot of that going through with Casey just constantly complaining that people don't think he's cool. Yeah. And, proving why people don't think he's cool.
Right. Here would be the reason.
I also enjoy the Starlight Vocal Band. So. All right.
So that's the apology. And then the Hungry and the Hunted. And in this episode, there's a lot of Joshua Molina because he is...
he gets the call.
He gets the call, which means he's sent out to do a field segment. And... I don't know. I had a little trouble with this one because, he's obviously uncomfortable with, it's about hunting, this segment that he's got to do. And he's obviously uncomfortable with it from the beginning, but of course, because this is his job, he goes and does it.
And because he's been not succeeded in other places because has not fit in. So he feels like here, and we've all done that at jobs. Okay, here I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to do whatever they say, And then he winds up having to go do this horrifying hunting segment.
Right. But I felt like when he came back, and it turns out that he actually got sick. He got physically ill from having to participate in this hunting trip.
Especially since he had lured the deer to its doom with a Twinkie. So he felt a greater sense of responsibility.
But there's this whole thing where Isaac, the boss, who's played by Robert Guillaume, gives him this speech about how, you should have told us, you should have known, you should have told us, and why didn't you trust us? To understand that this would be hard for you and that we could find something else. But to me, that wasn't very comforting at all. I mean, like, it was this whole thing, like, why didn't you know better?
Yeah.
And people keep saying how Isaac is, like in that Sepinwall review, or that, Isaac's like the best boss ever, and he's
like the Leo of Sports Night.
Yeah, and he's not to me yet. I mean, maybe he will be later, but and in that scene, I really felt for Josh's character. Of course he wasn't gonna say anything. Like, this is his job. He's new. He's proving himself. I don't think it would have been appropriate for him to say, "Oh, guys, I don't like hunting. Can we do something else?" Like, no. So.
That scene, the scene between them, always feels off to me, and that Jeremy's reaction to it is also kind of a non-reaction, and maybe that's, as you were saying, like, how could I have said that? I didn't know you guys. And the fact that Isaac gives him this you're one of us, it's okay. And then afterwards he calls his dad and is very excited, I guess makes it all right. I think that anybody who's watched the whole series has sort of the same affection for Isaac that one grows to have for Leo on the West Wing. I think that's a really apt comparison. Mm-hmm. But maybe we haven't quite seen it yet. You may be right, that he comes on a little strong. Especially things that happen later with the character. Maybe gives us this residual affection, but that there's something off about that scene to me. I mean, not Jeremy's monologue, which I think is wonderful, and somewhat Parks and Rec in a way.
Yeah.
But it's and very well delivered without that over the top sort of thing that I felt in the first episode. Mm-hmm. But something is off in the discussion that follows it. Yeah. And I don't quite know what, but it will. All these things will find their feet as we go along. Intellectual property, which comes next, is in many ways, a much lighter episode. Although it ends with
the fight between Casey and Dana.
Now, we've been set up pretty well to ship those two. Natalie is pretty much demanding that we do so.
Right.
And yet you hear that fight and you think, man, these people have been messing with each other for so many years. Why do we want them to get together? One of them should go work someplace else.
Yeah.
Possibly a different city. Why?
And why is it that she, I mean, it's just because he just got divorced, but, she's so into having them be together, like, I don't know. I mean, they've had many opportunities.
It sounds like their relationship has been fraught. It's not like one of these situations where they've always been ships passing in the night and never quite synced up. Like, one was always in a relationship when the other one wasn't, and they've always kind of had this thing that if everything worked out one day. But that's not what that fight is about. It sounds like they've been together and it has not been good more than once.
Right.
So it makes it hard to just say,
let's do this.
And it's something that I think is out of sync on this show. We'll talk about it more when we get to the second season. But that's troubling. Although I have to say, in terms of things set up early in the episode that pay off in unexpected ways, the bit about the fly and the payoff at the end where Dana finally sees him, that is brilliant. That is really nice. That almost makes me forgive the whole thing. The whole will they or won't they, and the whole awfulness of their past relationship. That is some fraught stuff.
Right.
There's reams of stuff on the internet about the way Sorkin writes women and his relationships with women. the characters, and this is evidence that, yeah, that's messed up. But the happy birthday stuff is very funny.
It is, but I also feel like isn't that one of those things that everybody knows, or especially people who work in TV?
Yes, I don't know that I would just think off the top of my head that you can't sing happy birthday to somebody on TV.
Yeah. See, I knew that because because when you watch TV, they never sing it. They're always singing some weird made up other song.
I guess so. Aaron Sorkin obviously just found it funny.
Right.
Yeah. So you're feeling good about watching this so far? Looking forward to...
Yeah, I'm ready to do more for sure.
Yeah, we got some meaty ones coming up. So what are the next 4?
The next 4 are Mary Pat Shelby, then one that's called The Head Coach, Dinner, and the Morning Mail. The next one is Dear Louise, and then Thespis will be the final one. So final one of that group that we'll watch for next time.
All right. 4 more up. We'll get through these much more quickly than we got through Parks and Rec because there's only 2 seasons.
Right.
And I think the second season might be a little shorter. I can't remember. But anyway, it will be fun to go through these. I'm looking forward to it. And I will put the link on our blog of the Sepinwall rewind of this show if people want to just nerd out on it even more.
Great.
But in the meantime, let's quickly move on to the West Wing episode that we watched.
Yeah. So this one was called Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics.
And it's the next to last one of the first season, right?
Correct.
I really want to get to that last episode.
Yeah, that's coming up for next week's podcast. So this one, we get a lot. It's all about them doing a poll, a national poll, to measure the job approval of the administration, and everyone's like, well, I think maybe we'll stand where we are, or maybe we'll maybe we'll lose a little bit because of their sort of new let Bartlett be Bartlett strategy. But CJ is confident that they're actually going to improve. So we get to find out whether she's right.
Audience, anybody didn't think she was going to be right.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we've been working towards this point at which their poll numbers go down, but it's within the plus or minus.
Right.
That's a triumphant moment for this show. Yes, we stayed within the margin.
I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
But it does get back to her feeling disrespected, which has been a recurring theme, and it's nice for her to win one.
Right.
And then we have this is the one that has the delightful musical chairs of ambassadors, right? With Austin Pendleton getting brought out of the closet as being for campaign reform in that scene where Leo is just laying on all the trappings.
Oh my gosh, with the Marine and his little...
Yes.
Well, and you don't find out, at least I didn't figure it out until the very end, that the whole point was to take a guy off the FEC to make him an ambassador
to the Federated States of Micronesia. Yes. I obviously, having seen it a few times before, knew where it was going, but the first time you don't, and that is just when you realize that little button at the end, that's what it's all for. That's a lot of fun. That's a fun reveal.
Yeah, this episode had a lot of fun little banter and zingers and things that I enjoyed. Just some of the conversations I thought were just even the scene with Charlie and the ambassador that gets recalled.
That is wonderful.
And Charlie, much like he did with the guy who was the judge, the Supreme Court Justice, potential. Yes. He's not going to say anything. He is just going to have that knowledge in his pocket, and if he needs to bring it out, well, too bad for you. He brought it out.
Having watched this before, I'm just sitting there rubbing my hands, waiting for Charlie to administer the smackdown.
Yeah, which is really a lot of fun to watch.
What a ass that guy was.
Yes.
The way Bartlett handles him is so delightful.
Right, and he's so happy that he was right, that Charlie had some kind of history with this guy that he wouldn't admit to. I knew it.
All those interactions were great, and his interaction with the guy who's like on the opposite side from him on everything but campaign reform.
Yeah,
and they're calling each other out delightedly, that they know that they hate each other.
Oh yeah. Like I'm a lily-livered liberal, blah blah blah, and I'm a redneck. Yeah. That's
that was very fun. The whole thing was just like Bartlett on his game, and it was
very. Yeah, I agree.
The one part of the episode that could have been neatly excised, of course, was the Lori subplot, which...
Ugh, yeah, no thanks.
Do we still have to justify that you had that at the beginning of the season when you thought Rob Lowe was going to be the star of the show? Couldn't we just forget that happened? Can we send it to Mandyville along with Mandy, who, say bye, kids, you're not going to see much of her.
Who's barely...
I don't remember if she's in the last episode or not, but she's not in the second season. So, couldn't we have sent that subplot off to Mandyville as well? But no, it has to.
No, and so that's
also worth it for the little banter in the Oval Office between, what kind of briefcase did you get her?
And it is very nice
for prostitutes once in a while. The way Bartlett handled that whole situation was fun, but I would have been happy for it not to be part of the episode.
Yeah, but I agree. I did like that. So that's Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics.
Yes, but we do have to say that the West Wing Weekly episode that goes with that episode has an interview with the actor who plays Kenny, Joey Lucas's interpreter. That is wonderful. I so enjoyed that. I feel bad that I don't know the actor's name, that I can say it now. But definitely go listen to the West Wing Weekly for that. And I always really liked that character and that performance. Very much. It recurs throughout the series. But to think, when he was talking about it, to think about delivering that dialogue, over and above the challenge of delivering Sorkin dialogue, he has to do it as if he is interpreting for her.
Yeah.
So it adds a whole nother layer to it, and she has to do her signing in such a way that the dialogue makes sense the way he's going to have to say it, and they have to do all this while walking. It's just wow. It's amazing. That guy deserves an Emmy. That's some difficult, complicated stuff. And it was nice that her actual interpreter posted a little message on the blog for the West Wing Weekly thanking him for what he had said and talking about it a little bit. So I just loved having that insight into it. And I value that podcast so much for bringing that sort of stuff out. And,
they're doing a better job than the Hamilton. So next week we are going to do this season finale for the first season of The West Wing. It's called What Kind of Day Has It Been? So I look forward to that.
And then, boy, we're off. You are going to be so happy that we are watching these in a row and that you do not have to wait an entire summer to get the first episode of season 2. Y'all are going to be so happy who are watching.
Thank you, Netflix.
Not giving too many spoilers. I just want to say I wished I didn't have to watch a whole when I watched it the first time. That summer was very difficult.
So that's going to be it for our round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes, including our daily speed rounds and our weekly group chats. And as always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Bye, Terri.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.